and welcome to another episode of the University Duel Podcast, where we talk about university life and more. And today with me, I have Mr. Phillips, who I'm going to allow, thank you for smiling at me, who I'm going to allow to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what he does. Hi, Phillips.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine.
So, my name is Durojaiye Phillips. I run an engineering company, so it's practically an incubator and accelerator for hardware and deep tech companies. So we help innovators build new products that they want to build, at least even if we're not building everything locally.
Yes.
We can build some parts of it locally before they can go to China or go to different other countries to source these products. So yeah, that's what we do at Innovia Labs.
What is the name of the company?
Innovia Labs.
Okay, awesome. I find it very interesting when I meet people that are doing things that are a bit outside of the box, especially in this part of the world. So when people are doing things that I consider like very risky, I try to like find out first of all, do you get your 8 hours of sleep? Because we live in a world where like Nigeria hasn't been fully industrialized. That's number one. I cannot imagine how expensive it is running a factory or whatever you used to build these things. And then the last thing would then be skilled artisans. There's this idea that we do not have skilled artisans, and so I'd like to know, what has your experience been in these 3 different spaces with what you work in?
Honestly, it's been terrible. It has been terrible because you have engineering students that leave school. A lot of them leave school with a lot of enthusiasm, and then they get into the job market. They cannot practice what they learned in school, and then they go off the tangent to start a YouTube channel or or become skit makers. Yeah, there's that, and then they are just not doing what they learned in school. They are not able to impact the community with what they've learned. So yeah, there's that, and there's also the fact that running any kind of business in Nigeria is stressful. Now running
your kind of business,
a hardware
is like
company, ish. Some of the challenges we've seen is that at least I think one of the biggest now will be customs. When you are bringing in new equipment, off the bat you're getting charged 30% to 50% of the value of what you are bringing in. So there's that, and then there's the fact that before you even clear your equipment, so if an equipment is, let's say, $10,000,
the first is $5,000.
So getting that equipment to your factory or to wherever you're based, operating, you're probably doing like $25,000. So you have to just pay off before it gets to you. So yeah, those are some of the challenges.
So how much would you now charge your clients? What would now be your profit margin?
Well, these kind of machines are expected to last like 10, 20 years. So you will see eventually be productive with the machines. But hey, the upfront cost is not helping us become less dependent on China. So at the end of the day, it's even more cost effective to just do everything in China and then just bring it here in containers. And then we have our brothers that will say container don't land.
Shout out to my people. Shout out to them. Wow, this is it's crazy. It's crazy. I used to work in a multinational for NYSC. Don't ask me how I used to figure that out. But it was a German company, and they were, of course, in all continents. And they had to leave Nigeria, where they had a bigger market, to go to like Morocco or some other, like even Ghana, African countries, because even though they had smaller markets there, by the time they add the cost of customs and just taxes and running and bribes and stuff like that, it was cheaper there where they had a smaller market. So it's very insane. However, today I want us to talk about the importance of practical internship over theoretical knowledge in Nigeria, which is something you've almost touched on when you say, like, I'm an engineering student, I leave school and I really can't do what I studied because the facilities to express my skills aren't even there.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the role of practical internship in basically coming into your own in regards to your career?
Okay. First, I'll tell you about my experience with internship.
Okay.
And then we'll do like a rewind.
Yeah.
So, when it was time for me to intern, I studied physics from the University of Ibadan.
Why
So,
did you do that? Well, let's not get continue.
when it was time for me to intern, I looked around for places that I could intern and learn. Not intern and become the errand boy. Yeah.
You buy amala like crazy.
So I searched and I couldn't get one. And then what I did was I approached a company that they were doing what I loved. They were building electronics and stuff like that. Very deep stuff that they were doing. I paid to intern. Yeah. I was paying my employer to intern at their workplace. That gave me some freedom because hey, I'm paying you.
I'm paying your salary now.
So, but hey, my internship, that was the first internship. I did it there, and then the second internship, it was just bureaucracy. I interned. My school, or rather, my department has a machine shop.
Okay.
So, and I wanted to intern there because of all the machines that are there. I wanted to learn how to use the machines and how to operate some of the machines. And then it was just a whole lot of bureaucracy. But eventually I got the internship. I interned there and it was fun. But still, that just tied into the fact that if my internship was, they were not accidental. I knew what I wanted to do, and I just did it and even paid for it at some point.
Yeah.
So now, drawing back, like I said, I was going to do a rewind. So, and this has been a lifelong passion to just build stuff.
Yeah, above the builder kind of guy.
So at like age 8, I built my first airplane. What a lot of people will call drones now, but they are just RC aircrafts. I built my first airplane when I was like 8 years old. I built my first jet engine when I was like 14.
Wow.
My school living project from the university was a drone. This was when drones were not popular. And then, my school living project was a drone. And this ties to the fact that regardless of whatever you are studying or whether there are opportunities to intern or not, you can always just build whatever you want to build, or just just do whatever you need to do, even if you have to pay for it. Yeah.
Wow, like that's such a lot to unpack. I cannot imagine if maybe I want to intern and there's no more opportunity to intern, I'll not pay somebody like that is crazy. But it's very interesting because a lot of the conversations that I've been having revolves around basically how you learn stuff in school and then you come out and there's literally no way to express what you learned, if you get what I mean, and that how that is really stifling the economy and the socio-political realities in Nigeria. So what do you think, what steps do you think we can take to first of all urge students to intern, but also provide I don't want my students having to pay to intern, so also provide the spaces where they can express their gifts and learn in that manner.
I think one thing I would say about this is not more about internship. It's actually more about having spaces where people can go and build stuff. So in the US, in the US, in the European Union, in the UK, and some of these top nations in the world, they have spaces called maker spaces or hardware labs. And these labs have all the equipment, they have everything that you need. And if you want to build something, you can just go into the lab. And these labs oftentimes are located within the universities. So if you want to just build stuff, you can those kind of labs are absent in Nigeria.
Very, very absent.
And when you have those labs, they are locked up. Like the equipment are locked up. Like you cannot have access to those equipment.
So what's the point?
Exactly. So I think the policy is more on encouraging people to actually build stuff by making those kind of labs available. So when those labs are available, someone that decides that, I want to build a racing car today, will go into the lab and start working on some sort of racing car. Whether they succeed or not, they would have learned
experience. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. The experience is everything. Someone that decides that, I want to build a drone, can just walk into the lab. There are always technicians in this kind of labs that, I want to build a drone. What do you think I would require? And then they get to learn, hands-on learning on these kind of things. So by providing those kind of avenues where people can actually build stuff, you can encourage a lot more engineers to actually build things, regardless of whether there are internship opportunities or not. And then the ability to build things becomes a better lifelong experience, even more valuable than the internship. Because if you go to an employer and you tell them that, I've built this, they'll be like, wow.
You are very ready for the job.
Exactly. Then, I intend here. Whereas when you were interning, you were just buying amala. You're buying amala for everybody.
Okay, so final question / school of thought. I think as much as the government is responsible for the well-being of the society and like creating spaces for people to thrive, I also think that, especially in this part of the world, that the government might be very overburdened, taking on too much. So what do you think, what role do you think people like yourself and the private sector have to play to bridge the gap between what the government can actually do and what needs to be done?
Personally, I'm not a fan of government doing anything. The government should just stay government and regulate and make policies. Government should not be running things. They should be funding things and making policies and encouraging people to come up with different solutions.
Yes.
So the private sector has a lot of role to play in terms of how our engineers or how our creatives bring things to life. And also, there is also the fact that there is also the behavioral part of this, where the folks that are creating stuff are not, there is no, how would I put it now? There is intrinsically no system that is celebrating people that are making stuff. But there is an intrinsic value in celebrating people that are not actually making stuff. So I don't want to give an example, but
he has some shade to throw.
I think you probably know the example I want to give, but we should. I think on our own level, as Nigerians, we should actually reevaluate our value system.
Reorient.
Yes, so that we can, if someone is one, like I said, the spaces where people can build stuff, and two, if there are, you will probably see all these videos of some young boy, maybe from Enugu, from building something. Those kind of kids, or those kind of people can just be put through some kind of training.
Program.
Yes, that brings out what they actually want to build. So we should be able to encourage those kind of builds. Encourage kids getting curious about their environment and building things, and rather than waiting that I'm going to school to go and get a job or that kind of thing.
Wow, we need a cultural shift. I really hope. Do you take interns?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, okay, awesome. Okay, so you're walking the walk, you're not just talking. This is very interesting. I really hope that we can grow to a point in this society where, because at the end of the day, our greatest strength is our human resource.
Definitely.
And that's the most untapped resource that we have as Africans. So I really pray that somehow, Shada, one day. Thank you so much for coming. This was a very insightful conversation. And that is all on this episode of the University Duel Podcast. See you next time. Bye.